Okay, good evening, dear students. Today we'll cover communicative approach, to foreign language teaching. Let's start. Today I will talk about theoretical background of the communicative language teaching. We can call CLT, objectives of it, and then principles of this approach, also techniques and activities. So the origins of communicative language teaching comes from 1960s, the scholars like Candlin and Widowson supported this view and developed this approach. And Council of Europe, at that time sponsored international conferences on language teaching in books, International Association of Applied Linguistics. So they were searching for the most appropriate approach or method for foreign language teaching at that time. And by 1971, a group of experts, they've whose names are Van Eyck and Alexander, they've developed a unit credit system where the topics are divided into different parts, designed, Then, so studies of the needs of European language learners document, which is prepared by by a British linguist Wilkins, in 1972, proposed a functional or communicative definition of language that could serve as a basis for developing communicative syllabuses for language teaching. So here, for example, analysis of the communicative meanings that the language learner needs to understand and express, So it is related to function. For example, it can be greeting, requesting for help, Then types of meanings here, we have notional categories, concepts such as time, sequence, quantity, location, frequency, then communicative function, as I've mentioned before, requests, denials, offers, complaints, And Wilkins revised this document, and also he expanded his 1972 document into a book titled Notional Syllabuses, by 1976, which had a huge impact on the development of communicative language teaching, Further, we can call CLT, okay, this method. So different scholars and organizations, have developed and also supported this approach, such as Council of Europe, Wilkins, Widowson, Canlin, Bromfield, and Johnson, etc. And American and British proponents see CLT as an approach and not a method that aims to make communicative competence the goal of language teaching, and also developing procedures for the teaching of the four language skills that acknowledge the interdependence of language and communication. Again, oral proficiency is also important here. Scholars such as Finocchiaro and Bromfield in 1986 contrasted the major distinctive features of the audiolingual method and the communicative approach. Let's have a look. Let's analyze briefly. So, for example, in audiolingual approach, method attends to audiolingual method attends to structure and form more than meaning. Demands memorization of structure-based dialogues here. Language items are necessarily contextualized. Language learning is learning structures, sounds, or words. Then, however, in CLT, meaning is paramount. Dialogues, if used, center around communicative functions and are not normally memorized, Contextualization is a basic premise. Then language learning is learning to communicate. Effective communication is sought. Drilling may occur but peripherally only. Comprehensible pronunciation is sought again. Then communicative competence is a desired goal. However, in audiolingual, linguistic competence is the desired goal. You see, there are huge differences between audiolingual method and the CLT. You can also have a look at these differences by your own. Let me also have a look at some of them. For example, language is habit, so errors must be prevented at all costs. But however, in CLT, language is created by the individual, often through trial and error, of course, as it's a foreign language. Then, for example, intrinsic motivation in audiolingual method will spring from an interest in the structure of the language. However, in CLT, intrinsic motivation will spring from an interest in what is being communicated by the language, you see. So let's move on. So CLT principles here, focus is on communicative and contextual factors of language, learner-centered and experience-based view of second language teaching again. Then the goal of language teaching is to develop what Hyams referred to as communicative competence. Hyams, so he's a scholar, person who acquires communicative competence. He says at Hyams that communicative competence acquires both knowledge and ability for language use with respect to whether something is formally possible, whether something is feasible in virtue of the means of implementation available, whether and to what degree something is appropriate, adequate, successful in relation to a context in which it is used and evaluated, whether something is in fact done, actually performed, and what is doing entails. Let's move on. So another scholar, Halliday, in 1975 has described 7 basic functions that language performs for children learning their first language. He says that the instrumental function, using language to get things, regulatory function, using language to control the behavior of others, by crying maybe, then the interactional function, using language to create interaction with others, personal function, using language to express personal feelings and meanings, then heuristic function, using language to learn and to discover, imaginative one, using language to create a world of the imagination, then the last one, the representational function, using language to communicate information, you see, which also supports the CLT here. Then let's also analyze other scholars, as Widdowson in 1978. In his work, Teaching Languages Communication, he presented a view of the relationship between linguistic system and their communicative values in text and discourse. So, and Cannell and Swain in 1980, identified 4 dimensions of communicative competence: grammatical competence, linguistic competence, discourse, and strategic competence. So let's firstly start with grammatical competence, which is closely related to linguistic competence, which was what established, explained by Chomsky, and formally possible thing, which was mentioned by Hyams. Then such a linguistic competence, understanding of the social context in which communication takes place, including role relationships, the shared information of the participants, and the communicative purpose for their interactions. Then discourse competence, interpretation of individual message elements in terms of their interconnectedness and of how meaning is represented in relationship to the entire discourse or text. Then we have the last competence, which one is the strategic, coping strategies that communicators employ to initiate, terminate, maintain, repair, and redirect communication. Let me have a look at this parts here. There was a small mistake, I guess. Okay. Let's move on. So let's consider communicative approach as from the perspective of language theory. Here, language is a system for the expression of meaning. The primary function of language is to allow interaction and communication again. The structure of language reflects its functional and communicative uses. The primary units of language are not merely its grammatical and structural features, but categories of functional and communicative meaning as exemplified in discourse. Then, again, as a theory of learning, here we have communication principle, activities that involve real communication promote learning. Task principle, activities in which language is used for carrying out meaningful tasks promote learning. Then meaningfulness principle, where a language that is meaningful to the learner supports the learning process. Again, communication principle, task principle, and meaningfulness principle, all of them should be meaningful, which promotes learning. And objectives, of communicative approach, which was described by PFO, in 1981. So, in fact, the instrumental function, as we've also mentioned before, using language to get things, a regulatory one, interactional, personal one, heuristic, imaginative function, then the representational function. Okay, you can have a look in details here by your own too. Let me move on. Then here, so let's discuss syllabus of communicative approach, which was firstly the syllabus of communicative approach was firstly presented by Wilkins in 1976. He mentioned a notional syllabus where where we had semantic grammatical categories, which includes frequency, emotion, location, then categories of communicative function, so requests, denials, agreeing, disagreeing things. And then later by the Council of Europe, the organization, the Council of Europe, they presented also syllabus which was based on situations, for example, where language learner can where a language learner has to talk in different situations, like while traveling, doing some business, and then topics to talk about, for example, personal identification, education, shopping, especially in a foreign country. Then the functions that they needed language for, describing something, requesting information, and so on. Then the notions made use of in communication, for example, time, frequency, duration, as well as the vocabulary and grammar. Then we had the syllabus, which was also described by threshold level English, which was described by Van Eyck and Alexander in 1980. Then we had, in fact, there were different scholars who presented their views on the communicative approach. You see, that's why we cannot say that this one is an ideal one. Okay, that's why we should consider different syllabuses. Okay, so another scholar whose name is Yalden, in 1983, he describes the current communicative syllabus types. He says, for example, he just collected all of them and kind of gave a brief explanation for them. So syllabus type, which structures plus functions, by Wilkins, as I've mentioned before, in 1976. Then functional spiral around a structural core, Bromfield in 1980. At the same year, structural functional instrumental one by Allen. Then by 1795, which the functional syllabus by Job and Hodlin. Then we have notional one by Wilkins again. The interactional by Widowson in 1979. Task-based one, Prabhu, 1983. Then learner-generated, Canlin, Hennerstan, we say, and Riley, in 1978. So some scholars, they have argued that the syllabus concept be abolished and altogether in its accepted forms, arguing that only learners can be fully aware of their own needs, communicational resources, and desired learning pace and paths, and that each learner must create a personal, albeit implicit syllabus as part of learning. But it can as as learners, they might be in different ages. That's why sometimes so some learners, they cannot, of course, be aware of their own needs. In fact, it's also debatable topic here. Here we had small, can be Let's move on. Others lean more toward the model proposed by Bromfield, which is functional spiral around the structural core, which favors the grammatically based syllabus around which notions, functions, and communicational activities are grouped. So types of learning and teaching activities in communicative approach here, for example, incomplete plans and diagrams, which was proposed by Birne in 1978. Jigsaw listening, Littlewood, for example, he presented two types of activities: functional communication activities, for example, comparing sets of pictures, discovering missing features in a map or picture, for example, then social interaction activities, conversation and discussion sessions, then dialogues and role plays, simulations, kids improvisations and debates, various of them. Then this order, for example, role playing, then comparing two sets of pictures, then also skit ideas, okay. Then let's discuss learner roles here. Here in communicative approach, emphasis is on the process of communication rather than a mastery of language forms. Scholars Breen and Canlin, in 1980, they've mentioned that the role of the learner is a negotiator between the self, the learning process, and object of learning. Here, a cooperative approach rather than individualistic to learning, like cooperative approach to learning, is stressed. Correction of errors may be absent or infrequent among learners. Okay. The next one. So let's also discuss teacher roles, which were proposed by Breen and Canlin in 1980. Teacher is a facilitator of the communication process, or like facilitator here, the person who makes the learning process more easier, by explaining, supporting learners. Then teacher is an independent participant within the learning teaching group, organizer of resources, guide in classroom procedures and activities, and researcher and learner who has appropriate knowledge and abilities to organize the class. Okay. Then another roles of the teacher: needs analyst, who should analyze, should learn about students' learning styles, learning assets and learning goals, and should also design the syllabus based on that. Then counselor, who gives guidance, direction by using paraphrasing, confirmation, and feedback, of course, without directly commanding. Then group process manager, who monitors the class, the learning process, and encourages the students in the learning process. And also the role of instructional materials here. We have text-based textbooks, then task-based exercises, handbooks of exercises, cue cards, activity cards, etc. And realia, which is authentic and from life material. For example, it can be science, magazines, newspapers, advertisements, or it can be also part of the notifications, maybe, in the target language. So now a short question for you. I want you to think about this. So how realia materials can be implemented in the classroom? Think about several activities by using realia materials. What do you think? Are they useful, or is it difficult to modify, to implement those realia materials into the classroom? Please think about it, okay, later. So let's move on. Then another question: while teaching an English language, to which levels can you implement communicative approach? Why and how? Okay, let me also add this question, like why and how. Okay, so let's analyze also, like, shortly and briefly, procedure of the communicative approach class. Scholars Finocchiari and Bromfield in 1983, they've presented a lesson outline for teaching the function, making a suggestion for learners in the beginning level of a secondary school program that suggests that CLT procedures are evolutionary rather than revolutionary. Okay, so here, for example, the lesson can start with presentation of a brief dialogue or several mini dialogues preceded by a motivation relating the dialogue situations to the learner's probable community experiences, and the discussion of the function and situation, yeah, people, roles, setting, topic, and the informality or formality of the language which the function and situation demand. At the beginning levels, yeah, where all the learners understand the same native language, the motivation can well be given in their native tongue, yeah, but only in the beginning. Then oral practice of each utterance of the dialogue segment to be presented that day, yeah, entire class repetition, half class, groups, individuals, generally preceded by your model. If many dialogues are used, engage in similar practice, okay? So you can question and answers based on the dialogue topics and situation itself, inverted WH or questions, yeah. Then question and answers are related to the student's personal experiences but centered around the dialogue theme. Yeah, study one of the basic communicative expressions in the dialogue or one of the structures which exemplify the function, for example. Then learner discovery of generalizations or rules underlying the functional expression or structure, yeah. Then oral recognition, interpretive activities. Then oral production activities, for example, yeah, proceeding from guided to free communication activities, yeah, where the learner can feel herself or himself free, yeah. Then copying of the dialogues or mini dialogues or models if they are not in the class text. Then sampling of the written homework assignments if given, evaluation of learning, oral only. That's it, yeah. Then sequence of activities presented by Littlewood in 1981. He says about pre-communicative activities, structural activities, quasi-communicative activities, then communicative activities, yeah, which involves functional communication activities and also social interaction activities, which are used, implemented in daily life, yeah, for example. Then let's conclude the topic. Yeah, CLT is a more humanistic approach to teaching, where interactive process of communication has a priority. Yeah, Johnson & Johnson in 1998 identified 5 core characteristics that underlie current applications of communicative methodology. So firstly, he talks about appropriateness. Yeah, language use reflects the situations of its use and must be appropriate to that situation, depending on the setting, background, the role of the participants, and the purpose of the communication. For example, yeah, thus learners may need to be able to use formal as well as casual styles of speaking. Yeah, because of this appropriateness principle. Then we have message focus. Learners need to be able to create and understand messages, that is, real meanings. Hence, the focus on information sharing and information transfer in CLT activities. Okay. Then the next one is psycholinguistic processing. CLT activities seek to engage learners in the use of cognitive and other processes that are important factors in second language acquisition. Then risk-taking, yeah. Learners are encouraged to make guesses and learn from their errors. They shouldn't be afraid of making errors because errors are totally okay, yeah, in this approach. By going beyond what they have been taught, they encourage to employ a variety of communication strategies, yeah. Then the last one, free practice. CLT encourages the use of holistic practice involving the simultaneous use of a variety of sub-skills rather than practicing individual skills one piece at a time. Yeah. So here I've prepared 2 questions, like them to answer and to prepare for them. Yeah. First one is, which functions would you teach to elementary, pre-intermediate, intermediate, and upper intermediate level students? How would you choose them based on which criteria? Yeah, for example. Then the next one, could you please design an activity by using your reality materials? It would be very, very interesting for me, yeah, to hear from you, okay, about this activity. Yeah. So that's it for about communicative language teaching.